Spectrum Hawaii visits the editors of a local literary journal and then watches a poem come to life. The American heritage of jazz is being preserved in Hawaii today, and so are the bulrush slippers created by the eldest man in Hanalei Valley, Kauai. It is midday in the Hanalei Valley on the north shore of Kauai, and the valley's oldest resident, Kenichi Tasaka, is on his way to gather bulrush reeds for his slippers.
They grow in marshland, and that it will grow straight up. But where that place there, once in a while the salt water goes in. And that's why the plant is strong. But I have some way up in the valley here that bulrush is no good. I cannot make because they break. That's the difference.
He brings his bundles home and pounds the fresh reeds, crushing the strong fiber. As a child, Kenichi Tasaka would watch his father make bulrush slippers, but it wasn't until much later when he made his first pair.
After I retired, I was working for the county for 39 years. I used to go farming a little while, but I never had no interest to learn from my father. I never learned, so I had a hard time. That I was kind of a little sorry that I didn't start a little early. I start from 83 or not long. My life is not too long, and I'm now 90 years old, so I think kind of a little too late, but my hobby. So now I'm going to get this. I have to hold it tight up, this thing, otherwise it will slip off. Now I go this way, and I twist around, and then I come this way again. Be sure this is tightened up. Then I come back this way again, and then I but when you weave it, try and get this part always even, otherwise this is going to be big and small according to this width. So I always try. Before I used to, now where's my measurement? I used to measure all the time. I got to measure, but now I don't have to because I'm pretty used to, so. Before it used to take time.
Today, his slippers are sold in a local art gallery. Once commonplace in Japan, these slippers are now hard to find as machine-made products replace handcrafted shoes.
3 years ago, my wife and I went to Japan. And Japan, they don't have this kind of slipper now. And we went to the hotel in Osaka, and we didn't know that room slipper not supposed to go down the lobby. So we had these two packets, two slipper, one for my wife and myself. Then we walk around in that lobby and around the store. There are people, ladies and people down there, they follow us. He said, where we got from? I told him, we came from Hawaii and we bring from Hawaii. They didn't believe it. You know, they didn't believe it. But in Japan now, they don't make this kind of thing because especially the old generation all died, and now all the new generation, they don't fool around.
The slipper is almost
Then I
finished.
pull this thing
Mr.
in.
Tasaka pulls on the cords to close the toe of the shoe.
Fold it in
Then he attaches the thong to the
halfway,
sole.
and then this way I'm going to put it again. And then I pull.
Once worn every day, now considered folk art, the slippers of Kenichi Tasaka of Kauai are like the man himself. Simple, strong, and ageless. The Bamboo Ridge Press is a Hawaii literary quarterly that publishes local poems, plays, and short stories. It is edited by Eric Chalk.
Bamboo Ridge it's quite unique, I think. I mean, actually, there are other journals in the country that publish Asian American literature, but most of them are struggling, I would say, and don't come out very regularly. We come out 4 times a year. We've been doing it since 1978, and we get grants from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Coordinating Council of Literary Magazines in New York and from the State Foundation.
And Darrell Lum.
In 8 years, we must have published about 250 different authors.
People think of him as probably the foremost writer of pidgin literature in Hawaii today. A writer of fiction and drama, and he's an editor for Bamboo Ridge. He has written essays on what local literature is. He has given readings in college classes, not only here but also on the mainland. He has his books and his stories taught in literature classes. He's, you know, a well-rounded person. He does a lot of different things.
One of those things is acting as an academic counselor at the Special Student Services Division of the University of Hawaii.
Not in kind of a sentimental way or, you know.
Do you remember any unusual questions they've asked?
Here, he advises a Vietnamese pre-med student who's been invited to attend interviews at several medical schools.
Don't try to second guess them, you know, or don't try to be so kind of wishy-washy that the guy won't know what your opinion is. You know, so if he asks you something, just answer, you know, whatever you think. The magazine started out because Eric and I knew a whole bunch of writers while we were in school who it seemed like after we got out of school didn't write anymore. Or if they did write, they were getting rejected a lot by mainland magazines, which didn't mean that it wasn't good work, but somehow a lot of the work wasn't appreciated.
Yeah,
That's a 499.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Cam, yeah?
Yes.
It better be. What kind of work can you do? But,
I don't know if I should sort of explain why I got, my grades got worse and worse over the year. No.
I don't think anybody will look at it and feel like they got worse.
We're trying to advocate a literature which more people will have access to, which more people will want to read and enjoy, and not so much the kind of what you might call ivory tower literature or the kind of esoteric poetry that nobody wants to read because it's so obtuse that nobody understands what it's about. Yeah, so that's one of the main ideals that we're following in doing Bamboo Ridge and in promoting the idea of local literature itself.
Does that make sense?
One of Darrell Lum's recent plays, entitled My Home is Down the Street, concerns an elderly Chinese man resisting a transfer to an old folks' home.
A lot of people responded to it because it seemed to have struck a nerve in terms of I guess it's more common a situation than I had realized. Some of them said that it was difficult to watch because they saw their own family situation in the play. The play isn't really about a 78-year-old Chinese man, it's about us. A friend of ours named the magazine because he had just learned how to go fishing at Bamboo Ridge.
Bamboo Ridge was once a popular fishing locale northeast of Hanauma Bay on Oahu.
So he told us about this way of fishing that people don't do anymore, you know? And it seemed right for the magazine.
75% of Hawaii's population find their ethnic roots in Polynesia or in the Orient. The writing of the Bamboo Ridge Journal reflects these roots.
A lot of it happens to be based in Hawaii and is about us. It's about the kind of people that live here.
Including people who shape their lives by ideals.
What I'm doing with my whole life, I think, is fairly idealistic. I mean, I'm trying to live the life of a poet. Generally speaking, that means that in order to make a living, you have to do something else.
I think Eric's poetry are probably some of the finest pieces of writing I've seen, period. His work tends to be, have specific images, detailed, is almost deceptively simple. It always tells something of a story.
You don't generally get paid for writing poems. I get paid for teaching other people to write poems in the Poets in the Schools program and reading poems to them, and inspiring people to understand and appreciate poetry.
His voice is, I think, real confident and real sure. You know that this writer knows what he's talking about, and I like that in his work.
One of Eric Chalk's most popular poems is about the death of his Uncle Bill. It's called Papio, after the fish.
Because you get the idea that in this particular poem that it was his uncle who taught him how to fish. It was his uncle who taught him a lot of things. But then, as well as being sort of a remembrance of the uncle, it's, I don't know what you want to call it. I guess a poem about the rites of passage, of becoming a man, learning about death.
Papio. This one's for you, Uncle Bill. I didn't want to club the life from its blue and silver skin, so I killed it by holding it upside down by the tail and singing into the sunset. It squeaked air 3 times in a small dying chicken's voice, and became a stiff curve, like a wave that had frozen before the break into foam. In the tidal pool we used to stand in, I held the fish and laughed, thinking how you called me handsome at 13. I slashed the scaled belly, pulled gills and guts, and a red flower bloomed and disappeared with a wave, like the last breath your body heaved on a smuggled Lucky Strike and Primo in a hospital bed. You wanted your ashes out at sea, but Auntie kept half on the hill. She can't be swimming the waves at her age, and she wants you still.
The sounds that jazz portray today have resulted from years of improvisation by the masters of music. Combinations of different styles of music, such as classical, rock, Afro-Cuban, swing, and many others, have given the world a fusion of forms that continually advance our definition of the word jazz.
I'll throw away a vision the way she moves. She's a dancer.
The growth of jazz in Hawaii is a direct reflection of the history and growth of jazz in America.
By light and music, as she starts to sway.
Jazz could be defined as experimental attempts to reach new levels of audio perception, clarity, and excitement. Talented jazz vocalist Janai Benuska began her singing career at an early age.
I started singing when I was 7, 8. I hit the stage when I was about 12. And I haven't really stopped since. I really enjoy singing. I loved it so much that I just did everything and anything that I could. After I got out of high school, I got on a plane, went to San Francisco, did a lot of growing up there musically. I went to Laney College and I took some classes, and I got to play with a lot of different people, mostly jazz influence when I first got there. And then a little more funk, you know, played with a 9-piece band. And then on the other side of the coin, I just did little duos with a piano player and myself. Came back to Hawaii and got involved with the pop influence, top 40 dance music, and that was pretty hot for a while. And I'm still involved with that, except now, kind of running in the background is the jazz influence that I've always had from when my mother used to listen to all those old records and I used to sing along. And it's really coming together now because I can use the jazz and the pop influence together, because it seems like a lot of people out there are doing the same thing. You know, they're taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that, putting it together and calling it their own. So that's basically where it all came from. Spirits here in Hawaii, the energy from the Bay Area. Coming back home was a real good idea.
Jazz in Hawaii over the last few years has been quite impressive as far as its growth is concerned, and that sort of ties right in with the national market. We're seeing an upsurge in jazz principally because of the, I guess what we'd call the baby boom generation. It's an overused word, getting a little tired, but it's very appropriate. Those are people born between 1946 and 1964. And that group of people, oddly enough, is appreciating some of the old jazz, some of the old bebop, much more so than some of the folks that were around during the swing era. This is reflected in an increase in sales of this sort of music. Also, we're seeing this tremendous upsurge of new crossover jazz, where they take the standard jazz improvisation, solos, techniques, and you put it with a solid rock foundation, sort of what's found in rock and roll, and you bring it up and you have a new kind of music, a new sort of virtuosity that really does work.
Unique sounds of Frank Lito and his group Picante add a new dimension and excitement to the Hawaiian and American jazz scene.
I think that jazz music is a type of music that's continually changing. It started off as kind of a means for musicians to express themselves. And from that, I think that the musicians are always looking for another means to express themselves. A lot of times when we think of jazz, we think of 4/4, a swing rhythm. Though I think that these musicians were looking for other types of rhythms to express themselves on.
The Hawaii Jazz Society is made up of a very special group of people. They mirrors the melting pot of Hawaii, the melting pot of the Pacific is what we're called, and I think it mirrors what the Jazz Society is all about. We've got people from all different ethnic and cultural backgrounds, of all type of musical tastes. You know, we cross from classical people to folks who are into Bruce Springsteen, and we find a medium ground for them. And we find that they're very supportive of the music. They're very hungry for the music.
Hilo-born musician Gabe Baltazar has often been referred to as the godfather of jazz in Hawaii.
Well, that's quite an honor to be called the godfather of jazz, but there were quite a lot of fine people in Hawaii that were instrumental in jazz, you know, such as Trummy Young, who lived in Hawaii for many years, the late Ernie Washington, the late Ethel Azama, and, well, yours truly helped, I think, helped in the survival of jazz, so to speak, in Hawaii, and trying to keep the flame burning. Being that Hawaii is multi-mixed cultures also, that you have many people from the European area and many people from the Asian countries, all in one area called Hawaii. And there's a lot of mixed taste and lots of taste on variations of music. And jazz is also a very important part of the Hawaiian way of life.
The way in which award-winning graphic artist and photographer Ron Hudson captures magic moments in a performance are not left to chance.
The excitement for me with photographing the musicians, knowing almost an anticipation of what they were going to do by virtue of having some musical background myself, studying percussion for about 8 years. I could hear it coming, so I knew where the crescendos, the decrescendos, the soft spots, the hard spots were going to be. So I could catch them doing what they do best, that high note. The music coming to me in what I do as a graphic designer and a photographer, it's so spontaneous. And a lot of the work that I do is not spontaneous, it's quite rigid. So I like the spontaneity of jazz. And I think that's probably what keeps me listening.
But I feel that things are happening, that the people in our country are realizing that jazz is ours, and that the fact that it is appreciated so widely everywhere else is coming back, and even the government of the United States has gotten into the act in the last 5 to 10 years of realizing that jazz is a universal musical language.
As a composer, arranger type, and not necessarily a front person, I'd call it, I definitely need Janai to get my message across if I have one in a song or something like that. I mean, I'm not going to get up there and sing, look good like she can. And she needs me to work out the arrangements and to help her write songs. I think it's definitely a two-way street. We both need each other to survive in this place, especially in Hawaii.
It won't be too long before I'm sleeping alone. I can tell.
The future outlook of Hawaiian jazz, like I say, it's going up and down, but I think it's on its upswing. Now the Hawaii Preservation Jazz Society is help promoting things, and we're looking also into radio stations that will promote jazz and little clubs, and especially preparing for the coming big jazz festivals in Hawaii, so to speak. We're starting out a little small, but eventually we're looking forward into making it a big thing, because the people in Hawaii, we're gaining many population. People from all over the world live in Hawaii now, and they have a very large mixture of taste, and jazz is one of the biggest questions. Where's the jazz? Right, and we're going to tell where the jazz is in Hawaii.
You're abandoning the love you deny, and what's left is a shell. This I know, baby, I can tell.